This broadcast is inappropriate for all ages, right here on hashtag WeAreMovieClub. Salutations, I am Camera, and I am conversation ready. We're running things a little bit earlier today because when life gives you the opportunity to do something and take charge of it, you need to take that opportunity when you can and just kind of weigh things against that, much as we saw Steve do in Captain America, the First Avenger. I'm going to fix this, I promise. Oh, that's why, because I've got a light on behind there. Can you just see it? Boom. Should be much betters. Much betters. Yep, just fucked everything up. That's alright. That's the type of show this is. That's okay. It should just be one more little tweak and it'll be fine. So we did take the opportunity to watch a couple things last night. The We Are Movie Club pick being, of course, Captain America, the First Avenger. So we all go all the way back to the 1940s, back to when Steve Rogers, used to get beat up in movie theaters for telling, rightfully, motherfuckers to shut their mouths, and wasn't never to back down against bullies. As we see, he ends up enlisting like 5 times. I can't even imagine the gumption on this kid. I mean, he's like 100 pounds, dripping wet. And I don't know if you've ever been in a fight before, but some weight matters every now and again. And that means no muscle. He's got asthma. That means that at any point he could just lock up and die while he's trying to exert himself, while he's under stress. It's ridiculous the amount of things that is there. I've met people when I was in the Army that got around the height or weight off or limits, who got around the handy-capable limits because the Army needed every hand they could get at the time, and then they started phasing those people out because they do that. It's like, oh, thank you for your service. We recognize that you have X situation. We no longer require X amount of people. We move on. So there's a time, and Steve just wasn't in there, and he was a good guy. It's kind of the point of Captain America, and we saw in Winter Soldier too, is he's morally straight. I don't mean to be crude, honestly, here. Before I get into this came up as a conversation in the chat because we watched this at Rabbit/Camera last night, and we'll continue to watch things next week. Like next week, we'll do Thor Ragnarok, and we'll do other things because I do it on Fridays and Sundays. But he's morally straight, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he never got anywhere with women. I'm not saying that as an objective goal to conquer and whatever. My point is that because women never showed affection as Steve Rogers, as he was pre-Super Soldier, he even from when he became a Super Soldier, and he went through all that torment and everything, even Agent Carter only loved him, or only paid attention to him even, for being Captain America. So in his head, he's still the shitty little kid from Brooklyn that doesn't deserve love and attention and affection the way he's seen other people do, and he'll never be the heroes that he's seen, regardless of whatever fantastic stuff he does. There's a lot you could break down psychologically in Captain America, and it all amounts to him being morally straight, because he's not corruptible in those fashions. I'm not saying that he doesn't date eventually. In the movies, I think I counted it up. I think there's 4 women that he ends up kissing. It's Peggy, or it's that secretary who was actually the Queen Marjorie from Game of Thrones. Then there's, of course, Agent Carter herself, which they get. I don't think they only get 1 kiss while she's that young, because they may kiss later when she's old. But whatever. What is happening with my lights? And then there's Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, and then he kisses Peggy's niece, who I'll never learn her fucking name, because it's much funnier to refer to her as Peggy's niece. So I just want to share a little bit about what I do like about Captain America, because honestly, like, I've hated him for years, and it wasn't really until Disassembled where like the chips got reeled down and the art took a different direction, that like I actually appreciated Captain America, because he is morally straight and dependable in any situation, and Disassembled proved it. Eerily positive too. It was kind of bothersome at points. But if he has quippers to play off of, like Spider-Man, Hawkeye, Ant-Man, he does really, really well too. He can actually be funny. Let's see. Talk about the movie now. We talk about comics more. I could probably talk about comics I can talk about Captain America as he was involved in Disassembled through Civil War, probably to Secret Invasion, pretty well. And I could talk about my image of him as a kid, because the classic Avengers were a bunch of nonsense. The only one I ever liked was Vision. And as much as they ruined Hawkeye in the movies, Hawkeye was kind of a weird character in the back in the day. And I got introduced to him through a brawling game. Oh, there we go. That's a little better. Through a brawling game. It was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Double Dragon, with the classic Avenger characters. So you could be, I think it was Iron Man, Hawkeye, Captain America, or Vision. Or maybe Thor. Maybe Thor was one of them. No, you couldn't be Ant-Man. What am I thinking? Yeah, so it was Thor, Captain America, Vision, Iron Man. And I guess technically the only one in there that can't fly is Captain America. Oh, Hawkeye. What am I doing? Okay, 5. That's 5. Alright, apparently I need to stop talking about video games for once. I have some sweet conversations about video games. Gaming Division 528 on YouTube. Okay, so let's actually get into the movie. There's some good bits to break open later on, but let's start walking through a little bit of this. I'm going to try to shortcut through some of this, because this isn't scene by scene. Or what was it? Cinephiles Anonymous. That's what it was. So the movie kind of opens up on this machine, and it doesn't click right away. They did fuck up the opening a little bit. It doesn't click right away that we're in 1940 and these things wouldn't exist. But there's like some kind of wrecking machine or siege machine that like ends up breaking into this house, this castle building, whatever it is. And Filch is there, of all people. So they come in, they talk to Filch, they try to reason with him to get the Tesseract thing that they want. No idea why it's on Earth. We clearly see that it's back on Asgard by the early 2000s. So at what point did S.H.I.E.L.D. lose track of it? Spoilers, at the end of the movie, Howard Stark has the Tesseract. He gives it to S.H.I.E.L.D. So S.H.I.E.L.D., in theory, has been taking care of it through most of the time. So I have no idea how it ever gets back to Asgard. That's actually a weird plot hole. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. So anyway, so Filch's friend, his boyfriend, his husband, whatever, gets crushed. There's some really fancy vehicles out in the street, like maybe it's noir style. They're noir style vehicles because they still, of course, have electricity and whatnot. But they have like 1970s, 80s tech in them. So even without the Tesseract, they're doing pretty well. And it's all Hydra. And if you remember from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra all stems from this alien, this extraterrestrial being or whatever that they came across and like had a lot of knowledge for him and then got sealed away. So they're all supposed to be not avatars, vanguards for this thing that God, Agent Coulson and them end up going up against later. Words are just failing me all of a sudden. I don't know what's happening. It's a really bad time for it, here on the podcast. But so you got a bunch of Nazis desperately trying to get in the sarcophagus before their boss gets in here because he's not a very nice person. Let's just say that. So like Schmidt ends up coming in, and I don't ever think they introduce him properly like that. And when they finally do, it's like Herr Schmidt, so it's like in German. So an American audience may not want to process it properly. But the three of them couldn't move it, so he comes in. He doesn't one-hand it, but he pushes it on his own and has it fly across the room. So he's obviously super buff somehow. So we know that this has got to be Red Skull if we know our lore at all already. He crushes the fake Tesseract. He finds the real one behind Yggdrasil. I hate that fucking name. I always play with it as Yggdrasil, and it's probably close to that. Yggdrasil. It's probably something like Yggdrasil, rather than like Yggdrasil, my Issel. But there's a cool one on the mural, and he pokes the snake eye and grabs the Tesseract. So we're on to back to America. To Steve getting rejected, getting beat up outside the theater. His buddy Barnes shows up, who's like a foot taller than him, trying to set him up. Like Barnes is trying to share with Steve what he can do to help him out to what he wants. So he's like, "Yeah, let's go pick up some ladies. Hello, ladies." Who are just not interested in Steve at all. Honestly, I think Barnes has probably got a good use of Steve as a mechanic for getting threesomes. Does that look like what was going to happen? Because they were both into the soldier, not the little guy with asthma. Meanwhile, Red Skull's taking Hydra technology up a notch with the Tesseract, helping Zoloff push the bounds and end up pulling energy from the Tesseract. And when you have something like the Tesseract, which we find out later is actually a portal, I had to point that out to somebody. So it draws energy through the portal, essentially, and is pulling energy through and storing it away like ammunition, or batteries, was probably a better description. You see that happen, and that should be a really ominous moment. On the army side of things, let's cut the shit on this. Steve enlists tries to enlist again. He happens to get seen by a very special doctor. That doctor gives him a chance to become Captain America, as we see it. And he goes through all this training process. And the only real scene there's two scenes, actually, now that I think about it, to really focus on. And don't get me wrong, Peggy Carter punching out that soldier, fantastic. But there's the moment where Steve pulls the pin on the flagpole to get the flag off the top of it. Because that's the goal, is to get the flag. There's no rules on how to do it, but all these idiots try to jump on it with 90 pounds in their ruck and climb the pole and can't do it. So Steve just undoes the pins. He finds another way. He thinks outside the box. It's the type of guy Steve Rogers is. And he gets to ride with Peggy Carter all on the way home. Yay! Sit next to ladies in a Jeep. Whatever. The point was there. You would almost think that Steve would get it and then get back in formation with the rest of the soldiers. That would be the Captain America fucking thing to do, but Steve was tired, so and then Steve jumping on the dummy grenade, because that was kind of his graduation test. Was Tommy Lee Jones throws out the grenade for whatever reason, and of course they're dummy grenades. They're what they're used for is for practice throwing, because you don't want to practice with live grenades. You want to practice target accuracy. So you have to learn how heavy the grenade is, how you have to move your arm when you throw, whether you need one of these, whether you actually need to pitch it, whatever works for you. Get the grenade where it needs to go and get the job done. It doesn't really need to be fancy, but you do have to be able to do it consistently. That's one of the things there, and surprised I was able to do it so well, because I don't distance so well, but I became a grenadier when I was in the army, so yay, stuff goes boom. So those are the two things, and you even see Carter move towards the grenade as well, so you see the kind of caliber that they're both in together. Of course, Tommy Lee Jones doesn't like him still because he's skinny. But the good doctor comes in to have a drink with Steve to congratulate him. And of course, The Red Skull is getting closer and closer. With Zoloff developing plans and everything to try to win the war for Germany or for Hydra, really. Now that you think about it, because it even says later on, it's like, we both know that Hydra can only grow so much in Hitler's shadow. Because Hydra does live in the shadow, so it needs to be in the shadow of something. It's in the shadow of the world. Whatever. So on the way to make him Captain America, he has this lovely conversation about getting into fights and getting beat up here, there, everywhere. Admitting this to Agent Carter of all people. Obviously doesn't know how to talk to ladies. Very funny movie. And she points out the very obvious, like, you didn't think to run away? Because that, if he's complaining about getting beat up, then obviously the solution was to run. However, he's not that type of person. He's not one to run away from a fight or stop a bully. He's willing to take a beating so that people can respect the soldiers and enjoy a movie without being interrupted by an asshole. Which I really wish Barnes had kicked that guy's ass more. That would have made me feel pretty damn happy, if I'm being honest. So, naturally, as you do when you get turned into a super soldier, somebody poops the party by shooting the one doctor who can actually recreate the serum, which was the whole point, was that if he has the secret in his head, no one can get it. So, the enemy's point there is to take it away from everyone. So if we can't have it, the Americans can't have it. That sort of thing. So, fucking idiot, like, grabs the thing, managed to shoot two or three guards on the way out, including the old lady with the machine gun. Pretty ridiculous, honestly, that, like, nobody can stop this guy. But if we look at it from the other end, he's the high-level character fighting through the scenario. So he's James Bond. They're all in the way. But of course, it takes someone like Steve getting used to his body just enough to use it to, I don't know, run through traffic barefoot, play Frogger across cars, jump fences in a single bound, and then he even uses a car door as a shield, and even has a little star on it. I really liked that scene. I thought that was cool. The one, I had two parts that, like, I had a little bit of trouble with. Because eventually the guy's just, like, trying to get away. Peggy Carter's shooting all his friends. That's all good. But when the idiot takes a hostage, which I always think is stupid. It's like, you've just created an unwinnable scenario, because either you shoot the kid and then Steve takes you, or Steve takes you and you try to shoot him, and the hostage doesn't matter. So he throws him in the river for whatever reason, because he's out of ammo. And the kid's like, it's okay, I can swim, which is a funny moment. Like, I gotta give you, it was actually a really genius bit of writing. But that kid was moments from undertow, like, taking him away and drowning his ass. So that kid did not make it. Especially as the submarine just drove by him. More than likely, unless he got up there that fast, the submarine sucked him under. And he, can I help you? He did. You just can't do much about that. The other thing was, as strong as Captain America is, especially since he's so new to this body, is he punches through the window, which even at super strength is probably going to hurt him just a tiny bit, and would take an amazing feat of strength. Now, times that by 10, because that's about how much resistance that water's going to give you. On top of that, it's a moving vehicle. So if this was an airplane, you would have all that wind pushing against your arm. You actually have thicker water pushing against him. So, hell, Steve, I gotta write Matt Pat for that one. He might be able to do the math that I can't do. That may be the world's strongest Avenger right there, because that was crazy. But of course, the guy takes his little cyanide pill, cut two heads off, cut one head off, two rights in its face. We're Hydra. Hydra's a bunch of pansies. Though it's as a viable strategy to control information, which is what Hydra does best, because it sure as hell isn't fighting. That's actually a good way to go about it. If you have people willing to die for the cause, oh yeah, I'm with you. I put Stever here. So yeah, so afterwards, of course, so they got to drain him as much blood as possible so they can try to recreate the serum while the blood's still fresh and there's still a maximum amount of serum in there. Now, let's be honest, unless there's a magical or mutant property to it, it rewrote his DNA. It was a virus, and it was essentially like a viral injector rewriting his DNA, which is why it hurts so much. So what you really got to do is take like some white cells, like actually take bone marrow if you can, and use that to clone him or something like that, because he's a different species at this point. He's got a different DNA structure than standard humans, so you got to take that extra measure. The prison scene was actually kind of cool. Peggy, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to skip the whole part where he was a showgirl, because that was unnecessary for so many reasons. And I don't give a shit if that was canonical to the comic. I really don't care. What I am going to focus on is when like Peggy finally recruits him and he sneaks into the prison in a bright blue uniform. I'll give you that. That was pretty amazing. Does he get a shield at that point? I think he has the standard shield that he had when he was the show choir. It's where he had his script. He breaks in, he gets these guys out, and he basically has a whole army at his command. So the army goes and starts taking weapons from the shitty Hydra people, and they take over the whole complex. And the Red Skull, it takes them about 30 to 60 seconds to notice what's happening, that all these elite soldiers that they managed to capture the first time by whatever losses they made, are loose. And then Captain America is actually in play, which he's heard about by this point, because Hydra, if I haven't mentioned before. So he knows that they are outmatched. He pulls the self-destructs, gives Soul off his car. Not a scratch here, Doctor. And then Cap actually finds Barnes. Oh, that's real sweet. Though you can tell that Barnes has already been programmed a little bit. So he's essentially a sleeper agent at this point. Smith has the Tesseract. Anything else important? I don't know. It's a good action scene. It's a good action scene with lots and lots of moving pieces. So I really got to give credit to the directors and whatnot there, because that was a lot to manage. And it's important. It's really hard to get those scenes right if soldier number 3 keeps fucking it up, and then he finally gets it right, and soldier number 7 gets tired because they've done it so many times. There's really a lot to that sort of shooting. Back at the camp, I don't know how I got distracted, honestly, that time. I know, I kind of came back on the bar, the point where, he's out dancing with Peggy, and she's in a dress, she's looking all fine and shit. No, she looks lovely. But the point remains that she is a badass, and you do not piss her off. As we see, after he recruits the Howling Commandos, he ends up going to HQ to tell, brief command, and command can counter brief, etc., etc. And then that's where Princess Marjorie, or Queen Marjorie, whatever the fuck her name is, ends up kissing him. And then of course Peggy walks up, and he's just like, "It's my first kiss," and she just does not give a fuck, to the point where later on she actually shoots at him about it, which I think is a little bit of an overkill. Because who knows where those bullets could have deflected, if we're being absolutely honest. Because she didn't know what the hell that shield was made out of. The train scene was really interesting, but you had the big dudes with the double barrel minigun of lasers and shit. That was actually a really cool thing to see. But the train just becomes an instrument to lose Barnes again. So that's where he gets collected and fixed because like his arm's probably gone at that point. So he gets the metal arm and he gets reprogrammed and he becomes the Winter Soldier sometime after that point. And it's also where they capture Zoloft, so it's like it's an exchange trope. We lose one, we gain one of theirs type thing. But they don't know that they can do an exchange, so that doesn't happen. Let's see. In the field, Captain decides to take it back to Schmidt. So they really go on the offense here, where Captain America is able to lead the Howling Commandos, and he can do a lot on his own because he is a super soldier, but he can't seem to do it by himself. So he has the Howling Commandos to help distract bullets from him, I'm sure. And he is fighting a war, so he does use a gun. I want to point that out too. It's like Captain America is a tried and true soldier. He didn't just put on tights and become a superhero one day. He was a soldier first. He had the heart of a soldier first. He became a super soldier, and then he was trained. Oh no, he was trained beforehand. Anyways, but he trained and had experience as a soldier and as a commander in the field. However natural that is. So, like, it's a big difference between Captain America and a lot of superheroes, especially like punk kids who just put on tights and like start webbing up people. Yeah, Peter, I said it. So there's a cool thing where like he actually, essentially it's a Trojan horse plan, but he sends himself in so that he can get to Schmidt, because Schmidt should have been taking the fight to Captain America. That's the only way he would have countered. If there's a really stupid way to put this. If they have a big rock that they're using to kill your guys, and you have a big rock that you're trying to protect, the only way to stop their big rock is to use your big rock. And it's just kind of basic strategy. It's like you've got to use your resources where necessary, because Hydra lost a lot of folks to Captain America, where Schmidt just sat back and delegated. Because he knew he was that important. But no risk, no reward, right? So once the reinforcements show up to help Captain America out, Schmidt runs away again. This time in his giant plane with bombs to go do it. There's a point back on the bridge where like Captain America makes a really good point. It's like Air goes like, "I embrace it," and he takes his face off and he throws it into the fire, and he is the Red Skull from that point. And Captain America goes, "Well, why are you running then?" And it's because Schmidt, or Red Skull, whatever you want to call him, he categorically wants to outplay Captain America and win. He doesn't care about honor or morals or whatever. It's the whole thing that made him the Red Skull, as opposed to being something that Captain America was like Captain America back when. So had he been a better person, maybe Germany would have hung all on to him. Who knows? But I would imagine it was something about Hydra in the first place that got to him and kind of made him do that. Because you think Schmidt started Hydra? No. Someone was pulling Schmidt's strings once upon a time. The Red Skull, as great as a leader and commander as he was of Hydra, did not start it. So there's definitely that going on. I definitely got distracted at some point, but sometime during this great fight in the air, Red Skull loses his damn mind and like tries to hold the Tesseract. I guess it's because he believes that he actually is of the gods, and even the gods don't touch the thing. That's why they made little handles for it, which probably aren't on there at this point now that I think about it. So he gets zapped by the Tesseract, but if you remember, the Tesseract is a portal. The Red Skull got transported. He did not disintegrate. He got transported, which means that Thanos probably made him his bitch. But once he got to a place where he realized he was amongst gods, I'm willing to bet the Red Skull would have bided his time. Really? You had enough. You really did. Why don't you go away? he would have bided his time so that he can come back later on. So we'll see the Red Skull again. I don't know if it'll be the same actor. Go that way. No, go that way. It's, of course, at that point, it's just Steve on this plane. He doesn't have time to learn how to fly a plane. It's too close to New York. He's got to divert it and crash it because he can't just keep flying forever. I'm about this close to throwing you onto the bed. It's going to happen. Why are you caught up in the wires? Don't do that. That was me being nice. Where was I? So of course he has this like tear-jerking conversation with Peggy Carter. That's not what I signed up for, but I get it. And normally that's what I hold out for, but it's like, and I guess that's the point, is that Peggy is such a badass that like you don't expect that sort of thing with her. But what can you do, man? When you love, right? And you would think that she would be more active about finding him. You think it would take less than 50 years to find the motherfucker, especially since Howard Stark finds the Tesseract pretty fast. At least he's good enough. Even Howard Stark, as much of a bastard as he is, keeps looking for Captain America. It's amazing. Let's see. It was kind of a neat way to take it afterwards, is that like when they finally find him, at the beginning of the movie they find him, but when they finally find him in like the 1990s or whatever, they have him wake up in a room that's designed just like it. It's like, let's see what he does. Very interesting. Very interesting. And I think it's kind of bullshit that they would try to do that to him with a Peggy lookalike. That was my impression. That like they thought he might not remember like his one true love of the time. The second girl he ever kissed. And it's just they're working off bits and pieces of information that like they knew that like he had an involvement with Peggy Carter because it's in the SHIELD archives. It's in the video footage of him looking at her picture. So they knew what she looked like too. So like they got close, I guess. But they fucked up with the baseball game, which seems like just bad planning on SHIELD's part, because like, it bothers me. It really does. It's like, why was that what he had to notice? It's like, I don't know. But of course, Fury like confronting him out in the street of the future. Oh man. But when they finally get around to Winter Soldier, they treat him a little bit right, and like they start easing him into things. Or maybe it's the Avengers first. You know what? I don't remember. I don't remember what order it happens in. It's probably the Avengers first. So I don't know. I really appreciate this movie for what it is, but it's such an oddity because it's so far removed from all the other movies because of how long ago in the past it is comparatively. What really stinks up the other movies is that they specifically are connected directly at the time period. So you can actually kind of arrange them. So like when you arrange them all over here, you got these 5 movies, and you got Captain America, First Avenger, all the way back here in the 1940s. It's a little weird. So until like they do Wolverine, World War II Wolverine or whatever, and show him in the same unit as Cap, fighting along there, like there's nothing else really to link them. And now that Disney has control of Fox, we may actually get that. It'd be a little weird. I'll admit, but it's possible. It's doable. And that's an important part of bringing all those franchises together. Minus Sony, because they're a bunch of jerks, but they're at least playing nice. Whereas Fox got bought out. So, and that would be a hell of a thing if Disney bought Sony, which I don't think it'll ever happen. But that would be quite the event of things. Because that would put Disney in the console race. Jeez. Okay, I'm going to not talk about video games. I'm actually going to try to play some here. Just a second. Again, youtube.com/gamingdivision528. Or you go over to htkb.dns.org/media/php to see all the other stuff that we're into. I think the Tumblrs are on there. But we do movie reviews for things as well. and we'll post them out there. But tomorrow is going to be for Bad Movie Club, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It was a lot of fun to watch. Again, Rabbit/Camerai. And so next week will be Thor Ragnarok. I want to make sure I say that. And then Friday we're going to do The Descent. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm pulling an Audible. No, we have to do Aliens. Shit. We'll put it in rotation. I fucked up a little bit because I actually started putting them so far ahead. But we're going to do Aliens. We're going to finish up that franchise, I think. And then we'll probably do The Descent. Or we'll take a break in the middle of it. Who knows? So until you see me next time, I am Camerai. This has been #WeAreMovieClub. Want to see anything else we're up to, go ahead and click the annotations and they'll take you to our other channels. Thanks for watching.